Perfect. So without further ado, we're going to do this keynote. And then after the keynote, we have an Ask Me Anything hour with Microsoft. So please stick around for the Ask Me Anything hour with Microsoft. If you are in the DC area, we also have a happy hour starting at 5:30 at the gathering spot. So make sure you all definitely show up. Kai, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Oh man, so my guy Ruben is here. So
What up? Can you hear
feeling,
me?
how you feeling?
I'm good, man. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hear you clear.
Good, man. I'm feeling good, man. I'm happy to be here. Feels good. I love the energy.
Definitely love your energy as well, man. Glad to see you again. So I see you on your social media, you keeping up with your jujitsu. I see
hmm
you keeping up with your weightlifting, but I also see that you moved to Miami.
I moved to Miami. I've been keeping up with weightlifting. I got to get back. I have still got to find the jiu-jitsu gym here in Miami, but I will get back to it. I was just talking to my girl about that. Yeah.
It's all
Yes.
good, man. It's all
Yeah.
good. So it's been how's the transition been?
It's been good. There's a lot of differences between Miami. Just speaking about Miami and the Bay Area. Um, I'll just talk about Miami, Austin, and the Bay Area.
Mm,
I think one of the similar qualities that they share is that they all embrace weirdos, and being weird is not a bad thing, right? It means
yeah,
that you're different, right? You can't be number one without being different. I think outside of the Bay Area, there is no city in America that you can be where you can raise money all the way from Steve stage all the way to IPO. So in Miami, you have Andreessen Founders Fund, SoftBank, Blackstone, many other funds that are here that can support you and fund you. It's the only city that I've seen that has the government, the founders, the investors, and the local economy really pushing for tech, where in other cities you might have it in very different conversations. Um, Being black and brown is a competitive advantage in Miami, as well. And then for the work that we're doing, um, given that we're serving people that want to break into tech and get prepared for these future skills, especially in an economy like this. 50% of Miami is in the service sector, making 35,000 a year, and those jobs can be destroyed because of technology, which means that other jobs will be created. And so there's a really nice opportunity to create a playbook here in Miami to make sure that what happened in San Francisco doesn't happen here as prices go up, so that local people that make Miami special are able to get the skills they need to live where they grew up, and then come up with a playbook that doesn't just involve corporations or government, but that could be rolled off across America and then all over the world.
well said. Well said. And that just kind of plays into, the work 100% the work that you do and the selflessness that you continue to embody. For those that don't know or not familiar, what was your journey to break into tech, and then give us a little bit more about what is career karma.
Yeah, my journey to break into tech actually originated, I was actually reflecting on this from my just journey to get a job, period. When I went to school, everybody wanted to everybody was focused on what do you study to get a job that makes you a family sustaining wage. And a lot of people say, be a doctor, be an architect, be a lawyer. A lot of people would say, be an investment banker or consultant. So when I was in school, I was like, oh, I'm going to just do that because that's going to get me a family sustaining wage. Nobody from my school was an investment banker. So I found a course called Breaking into Wall Street, taught myself financial modeling, leveraged an organization called SEO, Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, that helped Black people get on Wall Street. Cold emailed all of them, got a job. And it was interesting because I understood how that job search worked.
Right,
What happened is the finance industry, pretty much every bank is now becoming a fintech company.
right,
People started quitting their jobs as investment bankers because most people that do banking really only do it for 0 to 3 years for the exit opportunities. And the exit opportunities used to be, oh, I just want to go to private equity or hedge funds where I can make $500,000, $2 million. But then when they're like, oh, I could just go straight to tech and do the same thing, then I'm gonna go to this side faster, right? So people started going there, and then banks started realizing, hey, tech is inevitable, digital money is inevitable. We need to start competing with the tech companies. And that's when we saw the whole world changing. So long story short, bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco when I saw that change. My co-founders that I met in making did boot camps. We wrote a story about it called Breaking into Startups. That turned into a podcast, which turned into what we're doing today. So yeah.
Very well said. You're very tapped in, and you've been very tapped in for a long time, or you wouldn't have made that trip to the Bay Area. So, how do you stay in tune with how the market is moving?
So I take advantage of Twitter lists. I know a lot of Twitter's going through a lot of changes right now, but I think I've always been bullish on Twitter philosophically
Hmm.
because I believe in news that's reported directly from people
Hmm.
versus the media. For example, if an earthquake is happening right now, the people that are feeling the earthquake, if they had a way to report it or say help, like you would know it before the news knows it because they're feeling it first, right? And the reporter hasn't figured out how to report it properly. So this whole citizen journalism idea, even with the creative movement and personal brand idea, has always been exciting to me. And what I do on Twitter is I actually curate different lists of people in Miami, San Francisco, Chicago, you know, investors, and I just check them daily and see what's going on. And that's how I stay ahead of what's going on and I interact with them. The other area that I think people are sleeping on is LinkedIn. LinkedIn
Yeah,
media has been going crazy. And so I wouldn't say I've been using LinkedIn necessarily for staying ahead of the news,
yeah,
but LinkedIn has been fantastic from a inbound opportunities perspective, just by like doubling down on creating there.
for sure, for sure. And on Twitter, you do some tweeting too. So,
Hmm.
not too long
Hmm.
ago this week, you
Hmm.
tweeted a lot. But one thing that
Hmm.
stood out to me was you said, you don't know how strong something is until you test it.
Hmm.
So, what are some ways that you and your team were tested while building Career Karma? And how did you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, I mean, those tweets for the people that don't know about it came from a sermon I
You put a sermon earlier.
it was a sermon that came from Robert Madu,
Mm.
and it was about confidence under pressure, where he was talking about confidence as a litmus test for greatness. And I know what your question is, and I'm
No,
not
no, go.
indirectly answering your question. So before talking about that sermon, I have another buddy named Danny Bedney, and he was talking to me about the importance of pressure. So my parents are physicians, and I think it's important for everybody listening to understand that pressure is vital. So when you think about blood pressure, low blood pressure will kill you, high blood pressure will kill you, and the healthy blood pressure is necessary for life, right? So that's important to understand. And so the if in 2022, if you are a founder and you didn't adjust your plan, you're sleeping at the wheel. Like everybody has had the worst year that I know. And most, I wouldn't say everybody. Some people are thriving, but for the most part, people have had a challenging year this year. Not just from a funding and economic environment perspective, but just the dynamics of the industry. And so and the pressures everybody's feeling. So how are your customers feeling? How are your users feeling? How are your schools feeling? How are companies feeling? So all of those things play into decisions that you have to make. um, how have we been pressured? I'll say, going from raising $10 million to $52 million or is a big change, and growing from a small number of people to a large number of people is another big change. And so it's it's the macroeconomic environment is a factor, but the way that you move is a factor too. Like the difference between startups and everything else is speed. And so you don't want to introduce slowness. You don't want to introduce um, how do you make decisions in a larger organization? How do you stay on top of everything that's going on in the company to be able to iterate? How do you try things? How does ownership work? How does a hierarchy look like? How do you maintain that beautiful speed that you had early on as your company gets larger? How do you keep those values as the company gets larger? How do you make imperfect decisions? How do you have a culture that doesn't require consensus for every decision as
Mm.
well? So like it's a lot of like open questions that you have to do
Yeah.
um, that are really just consistent with the original culture values that we just have to think about and reflect on and really transition from being for personally I had to transition from being a founder to a CEO. Also recognizing that my role as a CEO um, has more weight now. So I'll just give you one example, for example. So you talked about me tweeting.
Yeah.
Historically, I've been like, oh man, I'm gonna just tweet everything that's on my mind, right? And if I don't, then I'm like being fake. I'm not being transparent. I'm not being raw.
Yeah.
But there's a concept called um, responsible disclosure,
For sure.
appropriate authenticity, relevant disclosure. So like those are all like things that I've been thinking about where historically most of my communication has been focused on customers, users, media, investors. Now it's also thinking about, how do I communicate, work with my team, teach my team how to do these things as well.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Okay. So would you say that maintaining the speed has been a lot about teaching your team how to do the things that you've been doing, or how do you all maintain the speed?
I would when I think about speed, I just think that what happened over the last few years with easy money is people just throw money and capital at a problem, not
Hmm.
realizing that you don't always have to do that.
Yeah.
And so, um, speed can be done with people, money, but also time boxing things, getting creative, like full ownership, recognizing that you don't need to wait for somebody else to do it. You can wear multiple hats, right? It can be outside of your job description.
Mhm.
So those are like just all things that I want to be careful about as the company gets bigger, that you don't become a big corporation that moves slow, right? So like when you work with big corporations, you're going to learn that they have long sales cycles, but it's
Mm.
not because they can't make fast decisions. They can. It's just the hierarchy, the culture, the way things are done makes them slow. So
Mm.
all I'm saying right now is as we're executing this year, doing everything to avoid becoming slow and also continuing to reflect their values, being willing to make quick assessments of what's going on, make fast decisions, um, and recognize that most decisions are actually reversible, and they don't need to be type one decisions because a lot of times these reversible decisions get elevated to the CEO when they don't have to, and you can make them on your own.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Switching gears, though, like
Mhm.
that a lot. Switching gears, though. So a lot about this panel today is talking about the different ways that people can have sustainable career. You talked about creativity. People have had to
Mhm.
become creative because there's been freezes, there's been layoffs. People have had to become creative in finding a way to remain in tech.
Mhm.
Now, right? So Career Karma is free, but many boot camps aren't.
Mhm.
Boot camps is one way that a lot of people scream in tech to get into the industry. How can our viewers decipher whether a boot camp is worth the entry fee?
Yeah. So a few things just related to the freezes and layoffs and everything like that. I think necessity is the mother of invention. I think it's important to take a step back and understand that during times like this, these are when the biggest companies are created. These are when people are relying on getting new skills, and you
Mm.
need to pay attention to what's happening at companies.
Yes.
Um, Pretty much every company is dropping the requirement to have a college degree. So if you look at companies like 110, or if you look at the Skill Up Coalition, if you look at Opportunity at Work created by Byron, Tear the Paper Ceiling, you look at things like that.
Mm.
Skills first initiatives are being prioritized not just by tech companies, but companies across the board.
Mm.
So boot camps are still worth it, but you
Mm.
do need to identify which boot camps have a history of outcomes.
Yeah.
The truth is pretty much all boot camps are going to be cheaper than college. So the price tag versus college is almost always going to win. So I don't even think that's a question when you think about post-secondary education. The real question is, what are the outcomes? And
Right.
when you talk to a boot camp or a college, ask them what their outcomes are.
Right.
I could tell you that college completion rate right now is under 61%, and 41% of recent college grads are underemployed. This is not me knocking college. I'm a college graduate, so
Right.
that's still an option, but don't quote me. Look at the New York Times article right now about the challenges that computer science grads are facing right now. So go look it up. Um, but going back to like the boot camp thing, when you talk to a boot camp and you're trying to evaluate, ask them, what is your placement rate? What's the average salary of people? You know, this is my situation and why I want to go there. You know, how long does it take to do it? How do I fit in my schedule? All these questions. But also be mindful of who you're talking to. If
Mm-hmm.
I talk to Kofi's School of Coding, you think that Kofi's going to tell me that his school's bad? No,
Yeah.
because he's trying to get you to enroll,
Exactly.
right? So what should you do?
LinkedIn. Find out people.
Talk to somebody that went to the school.
Exactly. And the
Talk to
easiest way.
somebody that's talk to somebody that paid for the school and got a job, right?
Exactly.
They'll tell you what their experience was, and that's why at Career Combo we created a community so
Mhm.
that you can talk to people because the people always got the answers. Going back to the whole citizen journalism thing that I told you about with the news,
Yeah.
don't ask me, ask somebody. You can talk about Career Combo all you want. Talk to the people. When we went to Afrotech, what we do? I had Sydney on stage. She'll tell you her experience about how she got a job at Accenture, and how she went through boot camp, and how people in her squad didn't just go to Flatiron; they went to a bunch of different schools. So, when you think about the ROI, how much money do you pay versus how much money do you get? Just compare that to the average salary, the amount of time that it takes, the also calculate the cost of not making a decision. Speaking about fast decision making, because you're the CEO of your own life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not making decisions is actually costly. So you
Very.
need to make a decision. If you want to get new skills, it's either boot camps, college, non-degree courses, corporate courses, MOOCs, something like that. But
Mm.
also be mindful that if you're not paying tuition up front, if your credit doesn't fit for deferred tuition or an income share agreement, which I encourage you to explore those, even though there's a whole bunch of stuff out there about how that doesn't work. And I know plenty of people where it does work.
Yeah.
It just requires effort, which we can have that conversation. I would love to speak about that with you guys. Um, But if those don't work, there are other options. There's GI Bills if you're a veteran. And
Mhm.
guess what? Some companies will actually pay for your education. And that's why Career Commerce is going enterprise. Because I'm going to be making some very big announcements in January with
Mhm.
companies that will pay for your education.
Mhm.
And that's why we are essentially working with employers because in my opinion, the cost of education will actually go down to zero at some point. That's why you're already hearing student loan forgiveness stuff with college
Yeah.
and the trillions that are out there. Um, if you look at the rest of the world, a lot of people go to school for free. Most people don't pay for their education; it comes from the government,
Exactly.
and there's nonprofits and scholarships, all kinds of stuff that are involved. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will. And my point is if you want something, if you want a job, you can do it. Just figure it out. And if you have questions, download Career Karma and ask somebody.
Listen, he's gonna plug and he's plugging because that's really what y'all need. That's what y'all need. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. We're gonna plug.
Ask me. Ask me, I'll tell you.
No, you spoke of different ways that people could make it in tech outside of boot camps. And let's talk early career programs like apprenticeships. Apprenticeships. Like how can people gain access to those programs? How can they best prepare themselves? I'm sorry, to gain access to those programs.
I think apprenticeships are cool. I
Okay.
like apprenticeships. Um, my answer might be a little bit more controversial on apprenticeships. I think that apprenticeships are a great way to try a skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage you to check out players like Multiverse. So I'm gonna plug Multiverse. Shout out to Multiverse. They're awesome. They do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, ignore multiverse now. When you think about apprenticeships, I think, and this is going to sound good to you guys. So what they tend to do is like they'll find people, say, hey, we're going to give them the salary that they would have when they get the job, and we're going to train them on the job, and then like they have the option of having it full time at the end. I think that's good, but I also think it's costly from an employer perspective, where the a lot of times these apprenticeships tend to be very low volume. It might be like 6 people, 10 people, maybe 100 people at most. Sorry, but for the millions of dollars that are spent to support that small volume of people, you could actually train thousands of people when you think about the tuition cost of a boot camp, which is what you talked about before,
Yeah.
where why don't we offer it to 5,000 people and take that same amount that you would have paid for 100 people, let them enroll in a program to see if they even like it or not, because that's essentially what you're doing with apprenticeships anyway, right? And then still give them the opportunity to interview, which is what you're doing with the apprenticeship anyway. Help them with the job search, and then if they pass the screen, give them a job. And if you're worried about what they're learning, just give the boot camp guidance on what you want them to learn, and they'll teach it to them. All right. So that's my perspective. But the short answer to your question is go to Multiverse and check them out.
He gave y'all the long answer and the short answer, but go to Multiverse and check them out. Now, we hear a lot at conferences and summits like this about networking and create your network and make sure that you're, creating community. But what does it mean to network, and what role has your community played in your success?
Um, this is gonna sound weird, but I'm gonna tell you. I think this, even though I'm bullish on the skills first movement,
Mhm.
skills, what company you work for, what school you went to, does not equal job security.
Mhm.
Your network equals job security,
Mhm.
right? And I've said this before, networks, not credentials, move careers, right? And it's interesting because when I thought about original names for career karma, one of the ideas I was thinking about was calling it social security, because it was social, then like that's security, right?
It's a solid
But
name,
then but it was like it's kind of dope, right? But it's just like kind of I was anyway. So
but yeah,
that's kind of the,
there's
yeah. So
reasons you gave.
it's a loaded term, right? So,
Yeah.
but like I think that because people are living longer, because people are um going to be going from school to school and job to job, and because there's no company in the history of existence that hasn't done a layoff. There will be layoffs, there will be adjustments, there will be changes in the macroeconomic environments. It goes like this, it has for history, right? And if you don't know your history, you're going to be forced to repeat it. So always remember that you move at the speed of your relationships.
Mm.
And when you're building relationships with people, don't focus on it being transactional. So
Yes.
if I'm talking to Kofi, I really want to understand his story and what he cares about, and doing whatever I can to help him out with zero expectation of return. And you know what that's going to do? That's going to create a real friendship. And Kofi's going to appreciate that, because Kofi's going to know my story, and he may or may not do something for me later. We call that good career karma. And like I think that that's like really important to understand, because if you are if you are doing something for someone with expectation of return, there's there's still kind of like some energy there that I wouldn't call it negative. I wouldn't go that far, but it's just different. It's not as
Not
genuine.
pure energy.
It's not as pure.
Yeah.
And I take the same approach even with sales when I'm working on getting new customers in enterprise.
Right.
I don't shove product down people's throat. I really like take time to understand what are your pain points, what are your challenges and priorities for the year as a company, what are the business outcomes that you're trying to drive with education, and how can career karma work with you to drive it and solve that problem in that regard. But going back to answer your question specifically for people that want to learn how to build with others, um, follow up,
Mhm.
right? So let's say that I did have a great conversation with you, and I was like for example, last night I was at a dinner with SoftBank and Nasdaq, and a lady, she just moved to Miami. She's a founder, and she's doing something with athletes and creators, right? And I was like, oh man, I'm connected to the pro athlete community. Why don't I connect you to them? And so I haven't followed up with her. I don't even have her contact information. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find it and I'm
Mhm.
going to connect it to it. And who knows what happens. But that is going to create a connection already because I didn't have to do that. She didn't ask me to do that. I
Mhm.
volunteered to do that. I took the initiative to do that. So if you all are looking for opportunities at a company and you know what their challenges are, do the work for them and be like, hey, remember you told me that you were gonna, I heard that you were working on this at the company. I actually built this solution for you. Or I found this customer for you. Like, I want to work there. I bet you they'll give you an opportunity.
Yep. Yep. But you know, don't forget to approach it as you know genuine.
Genuine. Yeah,
You
like you.
exactly like you said, just approach it genuinely and don't expect anything back because then you have that that taste in your mouth when you don't get anything back. But it's just all about creating those opportunities for yourself because something's gonna come back to you. It's the universe. It has to.
And one other thing here too is like try not to talk about business the entire time.
Yes.
Like I'm from the South, so like really breaking bread with people and spending
Mhm.
time with them really leads to big breakthroughs. And so I know I know I know it's easy to get like make sure that you're not wasting your time, but yeah, that's what I would say. But let's say that you are going to approach it purely transactional. Let me
Yeah.
just give you a game there. It is a numbers game, right? So let's say that you are trying to get a job, right? How many companies are you applying to every week? Are you treating your job search like a 9 to 5? Are you sending an email out every hour? Are you
Mhm.
applying to a company every hour? That's
Mhm.
8 companies a day. That's 40 companies a week
Yep.
if you're only including 5 days, 56 if you're doing 7 days, right?
Hmm.
How many is that a month? It's over 200 companies,
Yep. A month. Yeah.
right? Nobody's treating their job search like that, and they're complaining that they're not finding jobs. Are you applying on the website? No wonder you're not getting a job. Are you finding the person that's actually hiring in the role on LinkedIn and cold emailing them? And if they don't reply to you, are you following up? Because you should follow up until you get a response because here are the 4 responses you want: yes, no, future appointment, clear lesson. And by the way, the same lessons that go for trying to get a job exist to raise money from investors,
Yeah.
but also to close customers,
Correct.
right? So yeah.
No matter how you put it, it's a cycle. It is a cycle. Now you said follow up. What is proper follow up etiquette?
I mean, look at this Thanksgiving meeting. How
Yeah.
did it happen? Do you know how it happened?
Probably a follow up. I don't know actually.
I was walking through Afrotech, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw the homies, and he
Yes.
was like, Ayo was like, "Hey, what's up, bro? Like, remember me? Let's Thanksgiving. You down to do it again this year?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it. No problem." Of course, I remember Thanksgiving. It's amazing. And then guess what he did? I didn't even know he did this. He spoke in career conference audio rooms. So I saw the
Mm,
flyer. I was like, "Oh, that's beautiful." So I'm not gonna hold it down for the homies, of course.
of course you are.
And you guys have been hitting me with emails. I haven't been perfect being on top of them emails. That's why I was a little late, but it was just organic.
Hmm.
It was pure. I will always. You don't even have to ask. I'm down, right?
Appreciate
My connects are your connects, right? That's how it happens. So that's what I mean by follow up. Follow up is more like it goes back to you move at the speed of your relationships. The better
it.
that you know somebody, if you ask them to do something, they're gonna do it because they care about you. It's like your family asking you to do something. It's like your brother asking you to do something. If you have a good relationship with them, why not?
That's a fact.
Why not?
So keep them pure and move at the speed of your relationships.
Yeah.
Now, I definitely want to leave some room for Q&A for like if anyone has questions in the chat. I got about like 1 or 2 more questions for you. But anyone in the chat, if y'all have any questions, please start putting those questions in the chat room for my guy, Ruben Harrison. Just continue to put everything in the chat. Let us know how you're feeling about this conversation. Now, this next one is very light. What do you think is the future of the tech industry looking into 2023?
Investing in technology is one of those recession-proof things. Like I think it's an evergreen thing. It's a choice that everyone has to make. So no matter what industry that you're in, if you're not investing in technology, your company's gonna die. That's
Correct.
that's number one. So when I think about the future, a lot of people talk about what's going to change over the next 5 to 10 years. I like to think about what Amazon says, which is like what's not going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. What are the inevitable trends? So inevitable trends are companies investing in technology, the internet, digital money,
Yeah.
skills first initiatives, um, bunch of other things, cybersecurity growth,
Yes.
blah blah blah. Like we could go down the list of things that I think are inevitable. Um, what I will say that this recession that we're going into is doing is it's returning tech back to its basics, right? Technology has always been about doing more with less,
Yes.
right? For example, what did it take to serve like, you know, just going back to Twitter, like let's ignore how things are being done, right? So I definitely have concerns about how things are being done there, but the fact of the fact that the service hasn't shut down with half or 2/3 of the people not no longer there says a lot, right? I think that let's ignore the people that are working at a company because I do think that like the people at a company matter for sure, but also like there's a lot of excess, even with software as a service. There's a lot of software as a service products that companies have signed up for that they don't even use. There's a lot of excess. So think about that like as just like weight on a boat that like is making you slower, right? So if you're spending a bunch of money on just a bunch of events, for example, that aren't giving you recruits to hire, why would you do that? Why don't you do a virtual event like Thanksgiving instead of going in person all over the world, right?
Right.
And get your hires from here, right? Because that's probably cheaper, right? So there's I think that you're gonna just get back to those first principles of like doing more with less, being mindful of your money. When you look at Afrotech, which is where I told you that I'm at,
Yes.
there's a company called Indeed that's based there. I
Indeed.
have a question for you. So you know Indeed makes $3 to $4 billion a year.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah.
Union Square Ventures was their original investor based in New York. And guess how much money Indeed raised in venture capital total?
And venture capital total, and you said that currently they have 3 to 4 billion.
In
So
revenue a year. Yeah.
a year. Let's say in VC they raised 2.5 billion.
$5 million.
5 million. Wow.
Yeah. $5 million. You can do a lot with a little bit,
Yes, you can.
especially people that look like us. We've done a lot with a little for a long time. All
It's
right.
the nature of us, man.
So when you look at a company like Paylocity, that's public. Guess how much money they raised?
Paylocity, they raised, you said 8 billion.
$5 million. Right.
Wow.
I'm not saying that like different industries require more capital, but I feel like just going back to what's going to change, which was your question, I
Right.
think we need to get off of I think that raising money is very important,
Yeah.
but it's not the only thing that we need to talk about.
Hmm.
What we need to talk about is how to run companies. You
Hmm.
want to hear a real question that I give to every investor that talks to us about our Series C? I
Yeah.
ask them, all right, how do you help founders in an environment where they aren't hiring and they aren't raising money? And a lot of them give you all kinds of answers.
Hmm.
But you know what I don't hear a lot?
What's that?
We help them get customers,
Which is a
right?
really simple and
It's very simple. It's
yeah.
a really easy way to give value to your portfolio.
Yeah.
And this is not a shot to investors. This is just anybody. If you
Right.
want to help somebody that's a founder in this economic environment, help them get customers.
Hmm.
A lot of companies are going enterprise because that's where the upside is. B2B SaaS is like this beautiful model that investors love. It's predictable revenue. Okay, cool. Help them get customers. So to get enterprise customers, there's a lot of things outside of sales that you got to know. You got to know security, legal, procurement, like implementation, like all these things, how renewals, land and expand, like all these things. So I think that over the next few years, we need to start talking about that. How do you run a company for real?
I love that. I love that. And you happen to run a company.
Yeah.
Uh,
I got a lot of things I can talk about.
you got a lot of things you're talking about. So you also tweeted, well, you posted actually, this was on Instagram a few days ago about planting seeds and being excited to see the roots. What are some seeds we can look
Ooh,
forward to seeing bloom from your company in 2023?
give me 1 second. Give me one
Oh, you
second.
got it. You got it. You got it. Guys, Ruben is going to be right back. Once again, if you have any questions, we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes. So please put your questions into the chat and we're going to finish up this conversation. So if you have any questions, you got about like 5 minutes and then we're going to go wrap this
Okay,
thing up.
sorry about that. I was supposed to be in another meeting. All right, so question. Tell me the question one more time.
Oh, you good. So I saw a post that you did, and you said in
Oh yeah,
that post
planting seeds.
about planting seeds. And I was saying, what are some seeds we can look forward to seeing bloom for your company in 2023?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So there's another sermon that I watched from Transformation Church. It's called dang, I forgot what it's called, but it's about how it's bamboo season. You know what bamboo season is? So
Mhm.
bamboo is interesting because when you plant bamboo seeds and you water them, you actually can't see it break ground for 3 years. Like so you
Wow,
just keep watering it until it breaks ground. But when it breaks ground, it grows 2 inches an hour. So
exponential.
48 inches in 24 hours for
That's
4 feet. And it's hard and flexible and
mm,
durable.
hmm.
All right. So in 2023, you will see us, I wouldn't say in that phase where it's like has broken ground
Yeah.
as we're going into this enterprise phase, but I will say that there's a lot of activity going on underneath that you guys are going to be hearing about. And give me a year and a half, and then we'll hit into that exponential growth. But we'll start talking about bamboo season for real next year. And I have some announcements, some big deals that are going on that are specifically towards helping people that look like us with some big employers that you all know about.
We love to see it and we love to hear it. And watering, and I love that you were very honest to say it's not the exponential growth time because that's usually the answer that everyone likes to give. But there's so much beauty in the process, and people got to just become
Got to
comfortable.
take care of the garden. It's taking care of the garden right now.
Got to take care of the garden. How can those that are, either got laid off or striving to get into tech, that have not gotten to the point, the 3 year point where they're seeing the
Mhm.
exponential growth, how can they continue to take care of their garden?
That's a great question. Keep your skills sharp. Focus on not just the technical skills, but the intangible skills that we're talking about around like how to communicate, how to um, build real connections with people, how to add value to people, and taking initiative, being proactive. I would join our live audio rooms. If you go to like careerkarma.com/events, there's going to be people that work at companies that are hiring that you could talk to directly and just ask them a question if they're hiring. And can you work with them? Can you follow up? Like, just be direct and have a conversation. It's really how can I what's your interview process like? Maybe not go immediately. It's like a
Yeah.
date, right? You're not gonna go on the first thing, but hey, let's get married, right? It's like you're not
Right.
gonna do that in the beginning. You're gonna like get to know them first, right? And then over time, you might get to that phase. You might even ask to get married on a second date either, right? So just take some time,
Yeah.
but you will get there. But I would say like really focus on being in those spaces, being in rooms like this, taking initiative. I do got to go to the next meeting, but
That's
I appreciate you guys, and you all are amazing.
We appreciate you. Thank you for your time and have a blessed rest of your day, man. We look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
You too. All right. Peace.
Sure. Peace.